Hello and welcome back to my channel. Bonsoir et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel, and this evening I'll be doing a review for Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. The reason I chose to read this extremely well-known novel is because Jurassic Park, the movie adaptation, well, is one of my favorite movies of all time. Is also, as far as I can remember, the very first movie I ever saw or remember having seen in any case. I think I was about 3 or 4 years old. I was way too young to watch that movie because I was terrified of the Dilophosaurus. But then I came to adore the freaking dinosaurs, and I was an absolute dinosaur freak. As a kid, Walking with Dinosaurs by the BBC was probably my second favorite dinosaur IP at the time. And well, that love of dinosaurs kind of continued and naturally progressed into an adoration of birds, but then birds are dinosaurs, so that makes sense. So yeah, I was like, I should probably, out of principle, just check out the source material because I want to see what they change for the movie, whether I think the movie's better or not. So I borrowed this from my local library, and I'll already tell you that I was a wee bit disappointed, and I do think the movie is better, in fact. And I'm not really gonna do a synopsis for this because it's freaking Jurassic Park, but basically if you do need one, rich man decides he wants to create a safari park with dinosaurs recreated from genetic material extracted from fossilized amber, and things go very wrong. That's the shortest summary I could possibly make of Jurassic Park. So this was actually published 3 years before the movie came out. I think I read that, in fact, it was optioned to be made into a movie very quickly after it was published, perhaps even before it was released, but I'm not sure about that. And genre-wise, I would qualify this as light science fiction. In the back, it's called a techno-thriller. I guess it does have aspects of a thriller rooted in science fiction. I mean, it is science fiction to me, as far as I'm going. It's science fiction, but it's light. It's fairly light science fiction overall, and definitely has a blockbustery feeling to it, or a thriller aspect to it, sure. It's commercial science fiction, that's another way I could put it. And one of the reasons I say this is because I don't think it was very well written. It was written in a very commercial way. It doesn't stand out by its writing, basically. It was fine. It was serviceable writing. It was very fast-paced, though, very short chapters, so neat. And apart from that, I guess you could argue that at times it's a bit exposition heavy. Some people will like this, some people will dislike this, and some people won't really care. I thought it was fine. I guess I didn't really mind the science exposition dumps so much. It was interesting, though. A lot of the science is outdated or false or just too fanciful, I guess. Which is fine. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything excellent given its publication date. And what's interesting also is there are a lot of graphs in this book, graphs and images of like computer monitors, which was surprising. I don't really have an opinion about this though. It didn't bother me in any case. However, a point in its favor is that it is a multiple points of view story, and it has a pretty lengthy, it's not really a prologue, but it's just having seen the movie multiple times beforehand, I was surprised to see that the beginning of the story is quite different between the movie and the book. You have a bit of a slower beginning before getting to the point where the movie begins, if you're familiar with the movie. Character work-wise, this doesn't shine by its character work. I don't think character was ever supposed to be the focus of this novel, which is fine. It's definitely plot-driven rather than character-driven. Most of the characters are basically stock characters. There's not much background to them. However, there are two notable exceptions. Notable differences with the movie. Yes, I'm going to compare it to the movie. I mean, what else did you expect, right? So the main bad guy in this book is John Hammond, which is the dude who decides to open this safari park with dinosaurs in it. He's the guy with the money, and he gets investors from Japan as well, and he has this vision of using genetic engineering biotech to bring dinosaurs back to life based on DNA fragments. And he's a massive asshole. I wouldn't say he's a good guy in the movie, but I think he's slightly more sympathetic. He's like this, quirky, eccentric old guy. He's also a quirky, eccentric old guy in the book, but he's basically close to 100% driven by the idea of making money off of biotech used for entertainment, in this case via the creation of dinosaurs and bringing children in, but, making them bleed money to get access to to the park. So that was interesting. But I mean, not much nuance to him either as a result. And then the other interesting difference with the movie, but it really is to the detriment of the novel, Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Goldblum in the movie, is this charismatic mathematician specializing in chaos theory. He is also a massively annoying and hypocritical asshole in the book. Wow. It gets annoying because he's basically a mouthpiece for rants that are basically anti-science. I kind of went to check on the internet because I was really surprised about this angle to the story, and I guess the theming, generously speaking. Some people don't think it's anti-science, it's just science critical, but I do have a bit of experience with science fiction in literature, and that is a staple of science fiction, to be critical of the excesses of science, yes. And to me, this isn't doing that, it's going a step further. It's outright anti-science, I mean, Ian Malcolm has an anti-science stance, critiquing science wholesale, rejecting any redeemable qualities about scientific inquiry, about the scientific method, about scientists. But then it strikes you as being incredibly hypocritical because he's a mathematician, and mathematics is a branch of science. He's a scientist as a mathematician, and his own branch of mathematics, he says repeatedly, is being applied into the real world with things like the stock market, the study of crowds, mobs, ecological systems. So I was just really confused by this. I was like, why? Just why? The other big difference with the movie is you do have the two grandkids, John Hammond, Timmy and Alexis. But Alexis in the book is actually a 7-year-old little girl, and I just found her annoying. She was an annoying child character. And I mean, children can be the way she is in the book, but I just found it annoying and distracting from the main story. So yeah, I was not a big fan of the character work overall, but I mean, there's not much to say about the character work as such, to be perfectly honest. They're more set pieces and mouthpieces. Now, concerning the world building, I'll just address basically the science in Jurassic Park. Now, I'm not going to criticize the dinosaurs themselves too much, because my issues with the dinosaurs are the same that I have with the movie. But given the time during which the book was written and the movie came out, it makes sense that the dinosaurs look different and weren't quite as accurate as you'd want them to be, because it was the 1990s and a lot of things have been discovered since then in the field of paleontology and dinosaur science. So that's fine. I think the good thing about it, which is something you find in the movie, they kept that in the movie, and I think that's the greatest, one of the greatest aspects of the movie and the book, is that it popularized the link between dinosaurs and modern birds. And it's now, it should be accepted fact that birds are dinosaurs, and that some dinosaurs had feathers, some just a bit of feathers, some were fully feathered, like the dromaeosaurids, the troodontids. So I really like Jurassic Park for that. It popularized an emerging consensus in the scientific community about dinosaurs as animals and their relationship to still living animals. So that was really good. And to be fair, Walking with Dinosaurs also did this and furthered this in their own fake documentary series. But there are aspects of what I'm going to call speculative biology in Jurassic Park which left me a bit puzzled, because I didn't think they were terribly convincing, even given that the book was published in 1990. I'm pretty sure there was already research available that wouldn't have supported some of the things suggested in the book. There are a couple of suggestions that are just so out of left field. I'm like, why are you introducing this though? I'm like, whatever. And while I am happy with the fact that dinosaurs being related to birds is put forward, the fact that at least some dinosaurs were very probably warm-blooded was put forward, fresh science from that field was put forward in this novel, I think that's a great thing. But I guess what bothered, or at least disappointed me just a little bit about the dinosaurian world building is that the descriptions of the dinosaurs in the novel waffle a lot between bird likenesses and behaviors and reptilian likenesses and behaviors. It's like Michael Crichton couldn't make up his mind about whether he wanted to convey relationship to birds or how creepily reptilian the dinosaurs were. I guess you could ideally reach a happy middle ground, but I didn't get the impression of a happy middle ground. I just felt it waffled. It didn't really know what it wanted to be, and then he kind of threw in amphibian science, which I guess is partially explained by the fact that the geneticists patched the dino DNA with amphibian DNA, but they also patched the DNA with avian DNA a lot. So I'm like, moderately convincing explanation. Because I mean, one of the features in the movies is that, you know, the big T-Rex can't see you if you don't move, which has been concluded to be bullshit. But this is also extended to other dinosaur species in Jurassic Park, the book. And the explanation given for that is linked to amphibian biology, but the way it's presented is that it would be like that by default and not linked to the amphibian DNA patches put into the dinosaur DNA. So it's like, I'm nitpicking, obviously, but I mean, this is what I have to talk about regarding the world building. It's like the scientific basis for the dinosaurs and stuff, and I'm a nitpicky bitch, as we all know by now, so this is the stuff I pick up on. And then theme-wise, there isn't much to say either. This is mostly a book that's meant to be entertaining, I believe. It has a light science fiction foundation. It has dinosaurs, yay! But otherwise, it's a thrilling, blockbustery story that is meant to be entertaining and to pass the time. I mean, that's my belief. You do have the elementary classical science fiction theme of the dangers of the excesses of science and what happens when humans get a bit too uppity and think they can just do anything with the tech they develop, and you know, the horrible consequences of that, which has been a theme in science fiction ever since its arguably foundation in the 19th century with Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So, you know, human hubris and the evils of it. Rich guy gets rich investors to help him hire ethically questionable scientists to genetically engineer dinosaurs in a safari park, and things go haywire. That's the basic idea of Jurassic Park, and so it conveys that basic theme of science potentially very dangerous when you don't do it reasonably. Okay, the issue I have with that, though, is that, like I said earlier, I think it goes a step further than that. Like, a lot of science fiction does that in much more nuanced ways, I might argue, and in much more interesting ways. Since then, or even before then, it's a classic theme of science fiction, right? But I think it goes a step further, bordering into anti-science, at least based on the rants Dr. Ian Malcolm goes into about science is bad, or science is done. Like he says, scientific reasoning has reached its end and the West is obsessed with science, even suggesting that we live under a scientocracy and that science corrupts everything. And I'm like, no, it's power that corrupts human beings, and some of these human beings are scientists and they can be corrupted just like anyone else. Like, it's not inherent to scientific inquiry, applying the scientific method. I was like, what the hell is this? I was very, very confused by those rants by scientists and mathematicians. So I was like, okay, hypocritical much. So yeah, I mean, nothing redeeming about science, about the scientific method. Basically, scientists have never done anything good. They always destroy things. But then he later on points out that planet Earth will be fine whatever humans throw at it, which I guess I kind of agree with, but I mean, we can still enact a lot of destruction, and could we maybe not do that? You know, so very disappointing in that regard. And related to what I just said, I guess the second theme is that famous quote, which you find in the movie, "Nature finds a way." Despite what stupid puny humans might do or think about themselves and about the natural world, nature finds a way, in the positive sense of it will survive whatever stupid shit we throw at it. And in the negative sense of we will never control anything, things will always get out of hand because, you know, the dinosaurs find a way to reproduce on the island and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, it all relates back to this idea of human hubris and human beings playing with scientific knowledge and scientific technologies which they don't really understand or don't fully control. It's classic science fiction theming that's been done in much better and more interesting ways elsewhere before and since then. And now I'm going to add a little section of let's compare the book and the movie, which I've already been kind of doing throughout the review, but I'm going to add on some things to there. So yes, to me, the movie by Steven Spielberg is 100 times better. I gave a 6 out of 10 to the novel, which I finished this morning. It reads very quickly. I'll give that to Jurassic Park. I will be honest here, some of that is just a massive nostalgia factor. Just Jurassic Park, the movie, has a very special place in my heart. The music has a very special place in my heart. Like, I hear the main theme from Jurassic Park, tears come to my eyes, right? So it's a very meaningful movie for me. But part of that is also, I think the movie is genuinely better. I think the characters character work is better in the movie. Some of the dialogue, some of the quotes, which have become iconic, were movie exclusives. A lot of the scenes in the novel are in the movie. They're fairly similar works. I will say this. It's actually a pretty good adaptation, especially since I think it improves upon the source material. So some of the quotes, like "nature finds a way," said by Ian Malcolm, you have that in the movie. But then some of the great quotes, some of the great moments, like the gamekeeper saying "clever girl" to the Velociraptor before the Velociraptor rips him to shreds, that's not in the book. The thing about, man creates dinosaur eats man, and then woman inherits the earth, which is one of my favorite quotes, that's not in the novel. In fact, I'll say Dr. Ellie Sattler is a much more fleshed out character in the movie than she is in the novel. In the movie, they also aged up Lexi and made her the computer nerd instead of her little brother. Point to the novel though, there are more dinosaurs in the novel. There's a more fleshed out storyline with the Velociraptors, and there's a storyline with the Compsognatuses. Did I say that right? The compies, basically. But what I noticed is that basically elements of Jurassic Park, the novel, were then used in the movies The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. I could definitely recognize those elements. I was like, okay, so you didn't use that in the first movie, but then you used it in the following movies. Fair enough. Like that whole scene in The Lost World where this family has a lunch on the Costa Rican beach and the little girl gets attacked by Compsognathids, I'm going to say it that way. That's from the first novel. It was a bit modified from the first novel, but that's basically from the first novel. But otherwise, a lot of things are similar and then improved upon in the movie. Like the scene with the computer programmer who gets eaten by the Dilophosaurus is in the book. That scene terrified the crap out of me as a 3-year-old. But then as I got older, I was rooting for the Dilophosaurus. I was like, yes, eat him, eat him. And then one thing I think the movie did, which is really, really positive, is one, it even furthered and broadened this popularization of dinosaurs as lively, varied, active animals. As animals, some of them animals related to modern day birds, so that's great. It did this even more than the novel because that's just what blockbuster movies do, right? That's what some of them used to do in any case. And what makes me happy is that, I was really bothered by what I perceived as the anti-science message in the novel. But when you read into this, the movie Jurassic Park inspired so many people to go into science, to study genetics, to study paleontology, biology, and all these fields. And that's such a lovely thing. Apparently, some of the proceeds from the movie Jurassic Park back then went to fund paleontological research, and that's just lovely. Can we bring that back? Mini rant incoming. The crap ton of money made by all these freaking Marvel movies. Yeah, I have no respect for Marvel movies, no offense. Couldn't that be put into nice things like research, promoting the arts, culture, etc.? Like, that's such a neat idea. Can we do that more often, please? Thank you. Mini rant over. So yeah, that's just such a lovely thing to come out of that movie. There's so many critiques you can lob at Hollywood and big blockbusters, and most, if not all of them, are valid, but nice things can come out of them as well. You just need to want to do it, I guess. So yeah, to know that so many paleontologists my age or a bit older were inspired to go into that field because of that movie, that's just lovely. It's a lovely thing. I'm just going to indulge myself here a little bit. And quick note on the newer Jurassic Park movies, the Jurassic World movies. I went to read a few analyses of the novel and the movie as I was reading the novel, and also it kind of reactivated my love of dinosaurs, my childhood love of dinosaurs. I've been watching dinosaur videos on YouTube these past few days. And that's a good point. Jurassic Park also, well, like I said, it shifted the collective perception and visualization of dinosaurs, because up until then, most people thought that dinosaurs were these big lumbering reptiles, slow-witted, cold-blooded exclusively, etc. And Jurassic Park really changed that perception, presenting these lively, intelligent, varied from a behavioral standpoint animals, not always very accurately, sure, that's fair, it's completely true, but at least, it changed that perception and inspired lots of people to go into the field to acquire even more knowledge about these long-lost animals. And I feel like, I was one of those that was really, really annoyed that the Jurassic World dinosaurs, which should have had them, didn't have feathers. So basically, the raptors, T-Rex, it's much more debatable whether they had feathers. as adults, so we'll put that aside for now. But the velociraptors should have had feathers. I was legitimately annoyed, and I don't care about that stupid justification. They're genetically engineered animals and they don't have to be accurate, but the point is, and this is an opinion I also read in an article, is that Jurassic World could have done what Jurassic Park did and updated the collective perception of dinosaurs with more up-to-date and accurate information from paleontological studies. And they didn't. They chose to go like the, we want to make them scary reptiles route. And that was disappointing. It was a missed opportunity, I think. So yeah, I want to see a movie, or even better, I want to see a Walking with Dinosaurs remake with feathered dinosaurs. I want it, and I want it now. And speaking of dinosaurs, lots of them in my garden making a lot of noise right now. In fact, I have 2 pigeons on my terrace looking at me. So yes, dinosaurs everywhere. And that's a great thing. So that concludes my review for Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Personally, I wouldn't really recommend it at this point. I think most of the good things in that book you can find in the movie. So watch the Steven Spielberg movie, despite all its flaws, its inaccuracies, but I mean, those are all flaws and inaccuracies you'll find in the novel anyway. So I don't really see the point in reading the novel in 2021, to be honest, unless you're just really curious about the source material, but otherwise, nah, just watch the movie, rewatch it and rewatch it, listen to the music, and marvel at modern day dinosaurs, which are birds, is what I would say. I hope you found this little review informative. Please do share your thoughts in the comments down below if you're feeling so inclined. And I wish you all a lovely day, evening, or whichever time of day you prefer, and shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.